What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Rumpier Sports, bringing to you once again. We have the Lineup Builder Show with our partner, Sabersim. I'm here with my guy, Rubio Dimes. It's Monday. We got a great game. At least it sets up to be a great game tonight off of last night's. What are we doing? Giants, what are we doing? What are we doing? And right before halftime, that was bad. But I want your opinion on this, because I think not going for it on 4th and inches in the red zone, like you're handing the ball back, to the Bills and Josh Allen. And it made no sense. I mean, it made absolutely no sense. I thought it was a terrible, the Giants outplayed the Bills all game long, and it came down to coaching and just terrible decision making. So, I mean, what was your thoughts on last night's game? And I know that we're going to pull up the slate, and we're going to kind of bring that up and look at the results there.
Yeah, I mean, last night was a little bit weird, right? Everyone expected the Bills to roll. I mean, the defense was the highest owned defense I think we've seen on a long, long time. That was crazy. 50% for a defense, 20% in the captain even. So I did want to revisit that, see how the Sims reacted to that. You have your average profit through the Sims and actual profit as well. I want to see how it graded the defensive play, basically. And also Quentin Morris. We got our guy Angelo here saying that, Kevin, with that Quentin Morris call last night on the show, up to law. Quentin Morris obviously catching that second touchdown. It actually ended up being a Hardy and Quentin Morris double stack there that actually got it. So got first place. So it was a fun slate. I mean, I think anytime the 5-1 didn't hit, which was just super chalk across the board, you were going to have a unique winner. And, they split the 300K up top, and it was just two people. I know Kevin was very, very close. He was first in there for 44K with until that last drive. I mean, if Allen completes that pass to Dawson Knox, we have a lot of people celebrating last night anyway, but would have been even nicer to have 4 times the 11K that they had. So, yeah, a lot of fun. And then revisiting this from yesterday and stuff, I did want to see. We had our guy JSU X out 5-1s completely. He ended up making a profit on the slate. And
can you make it so that middle screen is the biggest?
Yes,
just so it's easier just so it's a little easier to see. Perfect.
Yeah, so this is JSU right here. So basically, well, now it's not. There we go. JSU had 150 entries, made a profit yesterday, and had 7 unique lineups and stuff. But we can also see his exposures. A guy who X'd out the 5-1s yesterday. We can go to his players here. And he was just almost exclusively Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen captain for the most part.
Love it.
And underweight on the Bills defense. He only had 17% of the Bills defense, which ended up being the move, right? Like the defense, albeit putting up a decent score, it wasn't the best play at all because, there's only so many paths where they get there. And, they were, 6 points off at that point because Saquon ended up having a few catches and stuff. It ended up being just a horrible play on the slate. And I was shocked by it. I mean, what was your opinion on the Bills defense ownership-wise?
Oh, I mean, the easiest fade of all time in large field type of stuff. Now, I didn't even – all right, so doing the single entry and 3-max sheet, I had him as, an option out there. But I just thought the price was too expensive, and I thought – you had other people like Tyrod Taylor's a veteran. I mean, he's going back to a place where he played for a while. And I don't know. I didn't think that. I thought it was going to be a closer game than what people thought. Now in single entry and 3-max cash, whatever, you needed the Diggs or the Allen, and I had the 3 captains that I thought were viable for single entry 3-max were Diggs, Allen, and Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis mainly because of price, and I wasn't that high on. And I had Tyrod Taylor as my favorite flex play just because I thought he was going to have to use his legs. He was going to get a little rush, a few rushing yards there. And then I thought, with Wan'Dale Robinson and other pieces there. I thought they'd be nice safety blanket targets for him. Wan'Dale Robinson and Darren Waller. The other thing, too, that I highlighted in the single entry and 3-max piece was they're being really cautious with Saquon Barkley. And, the coach speak that I saw or heard and just the Twitter searches and everything, if he was good to go, he would be like a full go. And so I thought Saquon Barkley was a really good flex play as well. So naturally, that got me kind of different and lower on the Bills defense. Can you pull up my? Now, I lost money, but I'll kind of. Oh, is this me?
Yes.
Let me show the people what I end up losing. I ran 50 builds. That's kind of my right now in Showdown. Tonight I might do. It really depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm right in between, like probably around 75 tonight. So, what was my expected? Oh, look at that, -23 expected sim RI.
You know why?
We got it.
Saquon. I think it was the Saquon ownership because Saquon was not graded out very highly. So what we can do too is the people who actually won first. Let's see how they did. But right here you had -73%, -11% for a couple people who did really well on their actual income return on investment, right? Right. So I mean that's always there too. And Saquon ended up being in the winner. Gators 070 with the Quentin Morris lineup too. Let me see who actually profit wise. So their sim average profit wasn't that bad. We had a negative right here, which was K Fallick, of course. K Fallick, we can check out his ownerships yesterday too. But I think he mentioned that on Saquon, he was like he went overweight on him. So that's interesting there too. And that was the biggest.
What was Saquon's actual ownership? Do you remember? I guess
21%, I believe.
21 in the flex.
Yeah. Oh, just 21% overall. I'm not sure about captain.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Can you go back to my breakdown?
Yeah.
I think so. I went with more captains, and my thought was I thought that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs would garner an overwhelming amount of captain shares. Like I thought it was going to be extremely high just with what I ran, and then Gabe Davis. So I wanted to open it up a little bit. Gabe Davis was kind of that pivot off of Stephon Diggs. And then I opened it up with I was underweight Josh Allen, which ended up being good. I thought there were paths to where Tyrod Taylor could be optimal, just because look at his price. He for a quarterback, a guy who could run. I thought he was alive to like a bootleg, in the red zone. Honestly, I thought that was the play call that they're going to do. A little bootleg, run it to the corner and get a rushing touchdown. I mean, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he's quick. He's a little speedster. So, I opened it up like normally. Like tonight, I'm going to have a much tighter captain pool. Last night, I was kind of embracing the variance, and I had a very wide captain pool. I mean, let's look at Big T.
Yeah, 100%. Let's pull him up here.
This is like one of my favorite features. I mean, Ruby, you know me. I love going back, looking at data. I'm going to talk about a few data points tonight that I think I dove deep. I went back to 2021 for the Chargers, and I'm going to highlight some things that I think are very, very interesting. But I love this stuff. It's how you get better. So this is usually what my pool looks a little bit more like, where I'm very concentrated, and I do think this like what Tony did. I think was the optimal path. Like that, they're just when you look back at the Bills showdown slates, it is Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis does sneak in there, but it is so concentrated with those guys. And I thought it was going to be overinflated, but the overinflated piece was actually the defense, which blew my mind.
Yes, 100%. And then we look at it here. Guarantee you, it was underweight on the Bills.
Oh, I can, dude. I freaking can. I mean, we all give Kevin Kevin a hard time at times, but it's slightly a bit. The dude is incredibly sharp, and he has monster hits, especially this year, on going with those out of the box takes, and I freaking love it. So I was not surprised. I was absolutely not surprised at all. And I'm always listening now. Whenever creeping on the three max piece where he posts his scores, which is funny. I'm always looking at that thing.
Yeah, it was all about opportunity. I mean, Quentin Morris was on the field a ton last night too. I mean, that was something that you couldn't ignore with Kincaid out. You
know who wasn't on the field a lot yesterday?
Trent Sherfield.
No, Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard, that's who it was. Sherfield was. Yeah, you're right about Shepard. They did play Hyatt a ton.
I liked it a lot.
Like,
I should have put
difference here on the slate yesterday where it was crazy when you had Deontay Hardy and a bunch of these Bills cheap range being very popular, right? Well, Quentin Moore's 200 guy. It's not like a 200 guy is going to completely tank your build either. And what was the ownership difference? We can actually check that out right now. The ownership difference on a guy like Morris, let's just pull up, K Fallick's build real quick, or even just a winning build.
Yeah, go to K Fallick.
Yeah, K Fallick here. I just want to make this mention. If you're going to take risks, especially like just on a showdown slate, because he almost had 50%. I think he mentioned the ownership on him was 2.6% compared to Hardy, which was 35% or higher. That's the time to take risks. I mean, their range of outcomes were not that different at all. Take a risk on a 200 guy. If Quentin Morris got 0, that lineup still cashes. He's not losing money on that lineup. I really don't think it matters with a 200 guy where if he's going to be on the field, definitely use that leverage against another player, especially when on this slate, Hardy ended up getting there, but guys who were popular who didn't end up getting there. Let's just look. I mean, Shakir was 3 times the ownership. I mean,
I needed that when you guys were talking about it on the show last night, and that was before, that was right around that time. And I did bump up Morris after you guys were talking about it because I was way too heavily exposed to Sterling Shepard. But like I was in chat, obviously, talking some shit to you guys, but it was mainly because I needed the 200 guy. And I had the wrong 200 guy, but the process ended up being right. It's just, K Fallick absolutely owned me there. But I saw his exposures. He had a little bit of Sterling Shepard in there. I honestly don't know if Sterling Shepard saw the field. I thought that like you had an older guy and then an older guy QB. I thought there might be a little shower narrative or something there, but I was definitely wrong.
It's all good. It's just interesting too. People always want to say, "Oh, that's a terrible player," or whatever. Like, dude was on the field a ton. If you get any 200 guys stepping on the field a ton, I'm always going to be interested. And it makes for a fun slate when that happens. And obviously, it was a fun slate last night for quite a few people.
Let's move on to so anyways, what is this called? What do they call it? The Sims flashback or contest flashback? Contest flashback. So yeah, that's a great tool. Click the contest. You can go back, make sure the date is correct, and you can go back and you can look. On to tonight's slate. I really like this slate. It sets up to be a great game. Hopefully it pans out that way. We have 2 teams that kind of break our hearts at times. Now, again, I'm a Chiefs fan, AFC West guy. I still like this. I like this Chargers team. I've been high on them. They've underwhelmed year over year. I want them to challenge my Chiefs. You need that, competitive nature to really build up, and it just really hasn't been that way yet. But I like what I'm seeing from the Chargers tonight. They get Austin Eckler back. They're coming off a bye. I mean, how early of a bye week? I was looking for their stuff from last week, and I'm like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? Because in doing the past optimals and the lineup study that I do, and I forgot that they're coming off a bye. And then we got the Cowboys, another team that, I mean, gosh, they're such a great team, but they break our hearts at times too, and especially Cowboys fans. All the Cowboys fans out there, you guys know that. But we get a 50.5 total. Dallas favored by 1.5 on the road against a Chargers team coming off a bye. I do like the Chargers side. I'm curious to see what, as far as betting goes, what our team is going to be on. Let me talk through a few interesting things that I saw when doing the lineup study. And let me pull up my notes here. All right, so on the I'm still pulling it up. On the Chargers side, when you look at their past optimals, it's interesting. They use up a ton of salary. So the average salary is 48,000, I think 400. So you're using up a ton of salary. The most common builds are 4-2s in favor of the Chargers and then 3-3s. Very little 5-1s. The most interesting thing is, when do you think the last time they've had a QB in the captain or Justin Herbert in the captain?
Oh,
I had to go back deep to see this, and I couldn't believe it. It kind of blew my mind.
Well, this supports the theory that I was Xing out the quarterbacks today at captain. I'll say, last season, midweek sometime. I would say 12 weeks ago. 12 games.
Week 14, 2021 against the Giants. Week 14, 2021 against the Giants. I mean, I was digging deep. I motivated this morning trying to figure stuff out. But no, and here's like my thesis on why this happens. You have very defined. Okay, so injuries do matter. If you think about the Chargers, especially last season, how many times was like Eckler out or a Mike Williams or a Keenan Allen? And so you had a very defined target share there, and which resulted in a lot of Austin Eckler captains. I think he was the most common captain. The other one was Keenan Allen too. And then if Keenan Allen was out, it was Big Mike Williams. The other thing is think about how they play. They're a pretty balanced team. And when you think about a lot of the games that they have, there's how many times do we see like a 7 catches for 115 yards, no touchdowns from Keenan Allen, and then let's just say Austin Eckler gets in the box twice. Justin Herbert's not going to be, viable in the captain spot. Now, going over to the Cowboys, it's been well over 20 games. Over their last 20 games, we have not seen Dak Prescott in the captain spot. And actually, the only quarterback captain going back 20-plus games for the Cowboys was Sam Howell. That was the only quarterback that's been captain viable. So, I don't know, Rubio. What's your thoughts on that? Just like big picture. I'm wanting to X out the quarterbacks tonight. Depending on price, I think Herbert and Dak Prescott, we move them out of the captain spot.
So running the optimal, I wanted to see what we were getting and stuff. But actually, when I ran the Sims, in preparation for this, there's one thing I did, and that was X out both quarterbacks. So I'm in complete agreement with you. I think Dak's an easier X than Herbert because when you look at Herbert, how many times does he throw it to a random tight end who's like 200, right? There's a path to Herbert being the highest scorer on the slate. To me, for Dak, there isn't. And the path would be him getting rushing touchdowns or whatever. But you have such a concentrated pool with CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard likely to get the touchdowns, right? But then all of a sudden, he's got more options this year than in the past with Gallup, Cooks, and Ferguson, right? Those guys are fine. But I just think at the end of the day, Lamb or Pollard reigns supreme there. And then even one of those cheaper guys. I mean, these wide receivers are only $5K. I know we just had a question about Gallup for captain. At 4,200, I'm going to mix him in the pool a little bit, and we can kind of look at that when we check out the Sims. And even in the Opto, he's hitting a little bit. But for the Chargers, I mean,
is this the base build?
What was that?
So this is the base build, right?
Yes, it's just base build right here.
And we're getting how much Herbert, captain?
25%.
25%. Okay. And we're getting almost 20% of Dak. So, and they're going to get ownership tonight. So, all right, keep going. I already love the stand that we're talking about.
Yeah, and you can see the projected ownership for both of them is around 21%, 22% combined. So that's very high for quarterbacks who haven't been optimal in the captain slot for their teams in a long time and have clear weapons who are number ones. Like Keenan Allen would have surprised you to see him hit 12 catches tonight. That's probably going to land him in the optimal at that point. And hell, we saw it with Diggs last night: 10 catches, 100 yards. That was it, right? Boom, optimal. So you have a lot of players here, especially skilled players here. I think you can get there in the captain slot. You see it. I was really interested in seeing Eckler's actually underprojected by Sabersim. Maybe they're thinking that he slightly gets worked back slowly a little bit. I'm curious to see. I think they took their time with Eckler. I think the bye week definitely helped him out a lot. I'm expecting a full load for him tonight. So I bumped up his projection on the Sims, but you'll see here in the optimizer, we're not getting Eckler at all. And that's just because his projection was about 4 points lower than you'd expect. But you're going to get a lot of Gallup tonight at 42 or 2,800. Oh my God, AP. They priced Gallup down to 2,800.
I know. I saw Snyder in chat, but he was texting me this morning. And I mean, that's way too cheap. It's way too cheap.
That's half the price of Brandon Cooks. Why? He's the number 2 guy. Brandon Cooks isn't. Oh.
Yeah, and he's naturally going to be so. Most people, especially large field, multi-entry players, we're all using optimizers. He's naturally going to be so overinflated due to that price tag, and the fact that the other thing I've seen, especially with Charger slates, you need a value piece because all right, we talk just looking at this. So let me pull up my my notes again. I had them up and then I clicked them out. So I'm looking at their last 20 slates, and what I did, sometimes they're on the main slate, but you can still look at it from the context of if it was a showdown slate and what would have been the optimal build. And that's what I do. 7 times it's a receiver, 6 times it was a running back, 1 time a tight end. That was from the Chargers players. 3 times it was an opposing receiver, 2 times an opposing running back, 1 time an opposing tight end. No kickers, no defenses. The other thing that stood out for me is to do this, and just think about the price tags of the Austin Eckler's, the Justin Herberts, the CeeDee Lamb now on the other side, and expensive wide receiver ones on the other side teams that they face. And you need a value piece. That's the one thing that's stuck out. So just pulling them up, like Duras Davis, I think was one. Do you know who that guy is?
Yeah, TCU legend.
Yeah,
very
TCU
good.
Levis. Yeah, so what he was priced what? This was last slate. So what is he on this slate? Are we getting any of them? Probably not.
1.2K, I believe.
Yeah, so he's a cheap piece. Westbrook Akini, he was like, just looking back just this season alone, Donald Parham twice. So like you need a cheap piece, just a punt value piece. I think getting that right and then figuring out for me which skill position player I want the captain is kind of the puzzle pieces I'm trying to figure out here.
I'll go ahead and say that Big T isn't dipping below Parham today. I'm going to make the bold stand that Big T is not going to include any of these cheapies for the one reason that you don't see a player like Gallup at 2,800 every day. That is just ugh. And Parham, I mean, he's a guy who's usually 2K and stuff. So always a red zone target. He's 2.2K today. We're going to check the Sims and stuff because I do like some of these 200 guys AP, but I am curious because I haven't looked at the exposures here just yet. I am curious to see what we get because Schoonmaker's the only one who really has a lot of appeal. Then you have guys like Darius Davis who are fine, Parham, but Turpin only played 2 snaps last week. Tolbert played quite a few snaps. He's 200, but there's not a ton of guys who have that appeal right now, but it would take them getting into the box right here. I will say this, Jason mentioned it earlier too. You can fit 4 studs and a mid-tier guy. The problem with the Gallup captain tonight is that lineup will likely have a high dupe number. It's like, if you're fine splitting 5K to first tonight and you want to run that lineup, yeah, by all means, it's going to be a safe lineup too. Might even be, considered in cash. I don't know. They usually like their quarterback captains and stuff. I'm not a cash guy, but you have to recognize the amount of dupes that lineup's going to have. How can you get different with Gallup at captain? But if you're cool, playing for 5K to first, by all means, do it. But don't be afraid to get a little bit different. Maybe you leave 3K salary on the table with Gallup there because there's a path where he outscores everyone, 7K and below almost. There's a path he outscores Joshua Palmer. So there's definitely paths leaving salary with Gallup captain.
Just looking back at the past optimals, they're as we're talking through this, price matters so much. There were a few examples of a cheap player. It was DeAndre Carter last year. He was captain optimal twice, but I think it was a highly duped build because it allowed you to get one of them was DeAndre Carter, Josh Kelly, Austin Eckler, James Conner, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray. The other was DeAndre Carter, Elijah Mitchell, Jimmy Garoppolo, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Austin Eckler. Both of them used over 49K of salary. So those type of builds are often going to be duped. I don't think you fade them. You don't fade them. Just make sure in your portfolio of builds, you're kind of managing things so that you're not overexposed. Because if we just look at what's happened this year alone, Josh Jacobs, Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, Gerald Everett has been the captains on the Chargers side. And it's just, it's such a high, I think CeeDee Lamb, I think sets up, I could see my captain pool being Austin Eckler, CeeDee Lamb, and Keenan Allen as kind of my primary captains, and then introducing some of these cheap guys as captains as well. Just kind of thinking big picture.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely interesting. DeAndre Carter ended up being the wide receiver 2 or 3 there for a minute there last season. That was funny. Also dropped a touchdown yesterday. I just kind of digging through the slate and stuff. I mean, this is surprising ownership just on the optimal alone. you're not going to get the kickers a lot at all. And that kind of goes to what you said. The kickers didn't really appear in these for these teams outside the Cowboys. Aubrey's been an absolute stud this season, but for the Chargers, there haven't been many kicker optimals, right?
I don't think year to date, I don't think their kicker has landed in the flex spot year to date. And actually, so Cameron Dicker, it's still their kicker, right? Dicker the kicker, or do they got a new guy? Dicker the kicker, yeah. I wouldn't rule it out though. Like I wouldn't fade it. But again, price matters, and we have some mispriced receivers in a really great spot. I mean, the Chargers are, currently look at 31st against wide receiver one. Sets up to be a great CeeDee Lamb spot. They're not good either against wide receiver twos or wide receiver threes. So it grades out as a great spot. Here's the other thing too, and I saw this in doing the past optimals. It happened more often than you would think. No QB built like in the captain or flex, and I think that's something that we want to consider tonight because think about the skill players and how this sets up. You have Austin Eckler, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have Keenan Allen, and then you got the cheap guys too that can fill in. So those are all things that I'm considering. I almost always have a quarterback, at least one on either side. But with these two teams, Dak Prescott, historically known for underwhelming, and you could see Dak having like a 240-yard day passing where it's all going to CeeDee Lamb and maybe Michael Gallup, but no touchdowns, and then like Tony Pollard like steals all the touchdowns, and then you could see that on the same on the other side. So that is something to just keep in mind when you're making your builds.
Yeah, it was interesting there. I think the path
and just so people don't think that I'm recommending doing that. I agree. Now Herbert's he's been flex optimal 4 for 4 to start the season. He's looked incredible. I agree with you, but that was a lot of those games were with Austin Eckler out, and we get Austin Eckler back tonight, and I think he's going to be key for the Chargers.
So the path to that would be, so we can just take out the Sims right here real quick. And the path to that is both running backs would have to be in your lineup. They would have to be running the ball on the ground a little bit. And these lineups don't not make sense. I mean, I don't love Pollard against the Chargers defense or whatever, but this is actually pretty solid. I mean, I don't hate that at all. I was expecting to come in and be like, let's see how gross these builds are. But you have two really good running backs who can absolutely score 2 apiece on the ground, in a certain script. I do want to mention, though, just because I see this Chargers secondary has been terrible. I mean, there's a reason there's been a lot of shuffle around in this secondary. They traded J.C. Jackson back to New England and stuff. The Chargers are not a good defense right now. And the quarterback in the position is where they concede the second most DFS points in the league, only ahead of the Arizona Cardinals. And to wide receivers, they concede the 4th or 5th, 6th most in the league, only just ahead of the Arizona Cardinals as well, surprisingly. I think that this Chargers defense needs to be picked on a little bit. I do really, really like our idea here where we don't captain the quarterback. We're both on the Chargers to win because coming off a bye week and stuff, we'll get to that too. But I do think we can't neglect the Dallas Cowboys passing game, especially Dak Prescott. I just think that it's not like he's priced $11K or whatever. I mean, he's $10K. All he has to do is outscore Pollard or Lamb, right? Or, just in the sense of things, he just has to be a top 3 scorer on the slate. And that is definitely possible. And I think both quarterback builds, like you see this one right here, this is the top ROI one. You can make fun of Rico Dowdle. He's going to get 6-7 touches, it looks like, on any given day. That's a good team. That has both quarterbacks. That has both number 1 wide receivers. The risk, you're fading both number 1 running backs and stuff. But that's what makes this slate fun. Is that you have alphas at almost every position to choose from. And, you're going to see a lot of builds with double quarterback that probably grade out high. And like this one right here, 2 weapons, and Eckler's capable of catching passes and stuff. Yeah, I like the way the slate sets up. I like the way the Sims are looking early.
Yeah, I like that too. Can you go back to the opto? I want to see in our base build that we ran, how many 2 quarterback builds were we getting?
I would say a ton. Let's do harder to check that just because we have him in the captain slot. Let's see. Herbert with Dak and Flex is how many times out of 150? 48. So you're getting at least a third, and that's just not even including Dak captain. 22. So we're sitting at 70.
So
Dak
all
here.
right. So let me get this comment up real quick.
I mean, the builds are
over 60%. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, Dak. Look, he's faced the Jets week 2, very good defense. Patriots. I mean, kind of gone downhill, but Belichick historically, decent. San Francisco 49ers, and then that Giants game. I mean, their defense won it for them. They didn't really need to do anything with Dak that game. So it's like I'm hesitant to just like fully like under project or rule out Dak Prescott. Like I don't, especially against this going to be a best the best matchup he sees, for quite some time. Like you were saying.
The Cowboys are the most polarizing team because people love to hate. People love to hate on Dak and stuff. It wouldn't surprise me to see Dak Prescott come in below, what he should, 45% or something like that. I will say the most concerning result was definitely the one against the Cardinals where the Cowboys lost 28-16, had a trail script the entire game, and Dak ended up not playing well at all, right? That's the sample that I would choose from. That's the one game that I look at and I'm like, he played like shit. The other 4 games, though, you look at it, the Jets being one of the toughest matchups of the league, that was with Reed and Sauce Gardner both healthy, so that secondary is one of the worst matchups in the league. 49ers, yeah, that sucks. I mean, the 49ers seems pretty damn good. And then you have the Giants, who they blew out. They didn't even need to play offense that game. And same with the Patriots. Yeah. They blew out. They didn't need to play offense in that game. I think game logging with Dak is just dangerous. Game logging with the Cowboys in general is dangerous to do because we haven't had a true matchup yet where this offense was engaged from play 1 all the way to to the 60th minute. I don't know. It's risky just to completely rule them out because the Chargers defense sucks, and we can't ignore that.
So like here's so Tua 32. Obviously Tua though that game nuked. Ryan Tannehill 21 DK points. Ryan Tannehill was 240 yards over the air, 1 touchdown. He must have done some rushing there too. Maybe snuck one in. Kirk Cousins put up 29.6. And then Aiden O'Connell, but I mean, look, that rookie first start, like we can give that a break, but he still put up 12.8. So we gotta let's pull up the projections. I'm curious. Do you want to start a new tab so we don't mess up any of your stuff, or do you want to just?
So we can kind of group think this too because I can always rerun the contest sim. So here's what I did. Kind of buy and sell. I kind of sold the QBs just a bit just to make sure they're fine. They're still up here in the top scorers in the slate. Got Keenan Allen as the top guy. Got CeeDee Lamb as the second top, tied with Eckler, and I have Eckler just a peg above Pollard. Anything that you disagree with here?
No, I mean that. Just looking through this, so Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert up there. I like that. I mean, yeah, a couple debates here: Eckler and Keenan Allen, and then the other is just. This is such a good matchup for CeeDee Lamb. I think there is an argument to make to have CeeDee Lamb like potentially higher than a Keenan Allen.
Let's do that.
Or all really close. I do like what you're doing here, though, having all of those guys similarly, projected together. That's kind of the script I was going to build out as well. And that's Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, kind of those main stud type players. And then, Tony Pollard too.
Here's also the thing, too. I had Pollard above Prescott, but I was getting way more Prescott just because of correlation and stuff like that, too.
Josh Jacobs was the last optimal captain against his Chargers team. So we can't neglect Tony Pollard.
So let's give him a small bump, too. And let's keep Dak Prescott a whole point below him. We'll see how that kind of shakes out here when we rerun the contest sim here. Joshua Palmer, he's in the 12s. Do you like that or not?
Yeah, I think that's where does Saber have him?
Saber has him at 12.
12. So he's gotten 5, 7, and 8 targets. Obviously, no Mike Williams. I think that's fair. 10.7, 15.6. I think that's maybe. I think in line, maybe slightly high.
Mike Williams being out and stuff. He had lead the team in targets last game. They ran the ball 37 times last game, AP. That is just disgusting for fantasy. But, Justin
Who
Herbert.
did? Chargers? Chargers ran the ball how many times?
37 times. I'm sure some of those might have been kneeling the ball too. But Herbert had 12 rushes, and maybe 3 of them were kneels. I don't know. That was crazy to see.
And then the big thing today is what to do with Michael Gallup.
I mean, so this projection's a little bit low. You're seeing him. He hit 38% just in the captain spot alone. He's the leading captain guy, or second leading? Oh, okay, third leading, 12% captain. So that's high. I mean, for a guy who's only 2.8K.
So here's the other thing too. He was on the field 82% of the snaps in week 5.
He had like 2 or 3 deep bombs too.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a big play guy.
So the breakdown was CeeDee Lamb 69%, #nice. Brandon Cook 65%, Michael Gallup 82%, and then Tolbert 45%. That was week 5. And Gallup has consistently been out there, like high 60s, 70% of the time. So the price is just egregious.
Here's a good question, AP. I'm going to go through your past optimals here. This is actually a good one because I don't think the Sims want to pair Pollard and Dak together. And at first glance, I mean, we can't really go too far back in the season because Zeke was there last year, but it hasn't been the case this season. Pollard and Dak have not been in the winter together. That is interesting. I mean, they're both 9K. Obviously, Lamb outprojects Pollard, so Lamb is probably going to be the one who's preferred to stack with, especially when you're running optimizer with your rules or, in the Sims and Sabersim too. So you have a lot of choices, but yeah, that is definitely an interesting thing if you planned on separating them if you have an optimizer.
We saw it last year. So like there was a cheap captain. It was Chris Moore, Amari Rodgers, Tony Pollard, Zeke Elliott, Dak Prescott. I mean, I don't know. How many targets is he getting a game typically?
Chris Moore was the optimal captain of a game.
Doing these lineup studies, I'm like, holy shit. So I mean, 5, 3, 3, 8. I mean, I wouldn't just like exit out, but I would acknowledge like how often it's coming in. I mean, maybe this is too. If you're building like that, maybe you piece it out and you build different game scripts. I've done that a few times where I have 3 different tabs up and. You just got to, and it works for Showdown because you can't late swap or anything like that. If you're trying to late swap, if it was a main slate, you can't really do that because when you go into late swap, it would be very difficult to isolate those builds and make adjustments. But for Showdown, I think it does work a little bit more, building out a few different game scripts where maybe it's one subset. You have those rules in there so that you at least know, hey, 25% of my builds are not going to have this combination in it. So that's one way to do it. I just wouldn't fully like group them away from each other today because that has to be somewhat of a unique combination, right?
Yeah, 100%. It definitely is a unique combination. You don't want to completely rule it out, but it is an interesting thing to bring up, And I think a lot of people's heads might go in that direction tonight where, especially with like Eckler and Pollard being such great running backs, 2 guys, Eckler especially around the goal line who they always go to. It'll be interesting to see how the field reacts and stuff. Obviously, we have here, I wanted to bring this up to you real quick too. 5-1s. You keeping them in, or you want me to take them out?
So they've been strong on the Cowboys side, but that's mainly in like complete. I mean, all right. So
the defense,
the 40,
right?
The 40. Yeah. Well, so it was a 1-5 against the 49ers when they got absolutely dismantled, and then right before that it was a 5-1 with Dallas defense as captain. And then the Giants game was a 5-1. So 3 of the Cowboys games this season has been 5-1s or a 1-5. But going over to we haven't seen it as much on the Chargers side. It actually, over the last 20 builds, it's only happened twice. But again, one of those times was this season. And it was the game against Minnesota. Where it's Keenan Allen. It was a double stud wide receiver build. It was Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, Josh Palmer, Justin Jefferson, Mike Williams, and Mr. Parham. And that's kind of what I see. So I don't want to fully rule out 5-1s. I think yeah, I don't know. I do like the 4-2s a lot better, and the 3. I think 3-3s are viable. How many 5-1s were we getting?
We were getting way too much, 22%.
Way too.
I didn't.
Maybe
like
we X them. Maybe we X them out if they're going to be over-owned on the slate. Both teams have competent skill. I was thinking that the 5-1s would be much lower owned on this slate since it's a close spread. Where last night it was a situation where the Bills were favored by 16.5. Yeah, everyone's going to love 5-1s then. I thought since it was a close spread tonight, it's projected to be a good game. I thought the 5-1s would be pretty contrarian. So it's interesting that we're getting quite a bit of them.
Yeah, I thought that was the case too. I mean, the cheap options are all spread around as well. So I was shocked to get that much. And even the 4-2s, when we go to exclusively to 4-2s, Dak Prescott drops a little bit there too, which people might like to see. When we ran the contest sims, we get a lot more Eckler. Pollard still lags behind at around 25%, which – how much in the captain are we getting? We're not getting a ton. We are getting 7%. So looking at it like initially and stuff, I mean, we get a lot of CD limit. We haven't adjusted our uniques to 2. When we do that, we get more Pollard, Keenan, and Lamb up top. Doesn't love Eckler captain despite being within a half point of Lamb and Keenan. And then all of a sudden, when you're going into it further, we get a little bit more Gallup when we adjust the uniques. We get a little bit less Dak, and Herbert stays the same. So it boosts Pollard, it decreases Dak. That's probably in line. I like these 2 unique numbers. I like doing multiple uniques. I think when the value is clear, you do 1 unique, but when the value is a little bit muddy, you do 2. And Gallup's clear, but below Gallup, that's where it becomes a little bit muddy. You have a lot of guys who can potentially make an impact. And, I still want to get overweight on Gallup because I think that price tag is just a complete mistake. And we're going to end up with about 40% total, it looks right now. As things stand, this probably will change without a doubt before lock, but I'll probably want to stay in that 40% range, if not a little bit higher.
I like that. Can you pull up your build settings? And I don't want to rerun a build because it just might take a little bit of time, but I do think this is a slate where I might put my min salary at like 47,500. I don't normally do that. Or just look at, or I guess, you can look. Yeah, look at that. I think I saw one that was 45. Outside of that,
I've only seen a 48
or 48. I thought I saw 46 in there. I could be wrong.
46. There you go. Let's check out the 46.
That's actually not. That could be actually a bad thing, just because you don't want to, throw out some builds that, like Michael Gallup's price is just wrong. Like you don't want to fully eliminate those builds, and pricing matters as we always say. But just looking at this is 2 teams too, to where it's the average salary for Chargers 48.4K, and for the Cowboys 47.1. But if you eliminate all of the games where it's like defense captain and stuff like that, it inflates back up to that 48K plus range. So that what that tells me is we want skill position players. We want the studs, which that's what we're here for, Rubio. Like these are the slates that I absolutely love. Now that we say all that, it's probably going to end up being like 13-7, some super weird score.
Oh God, please no.
It's not going to happen. No, the Chargers. Please. Yeah, the Chargers can't. The thing is I think Justin Herbert is a stud. I think he's very good. They got Keenan Allen. They got Austin Eckler back. Gerald Everett's been really good. And then you got to like what they're doing with Parham. They're going to be able to put up points. And as we've been saying, I think Dak is going to be able to find his guys against this defense. So, while this 50.5 seems high, I'd be curious because I do kind of it seems like unders have been hitting at a pretty high clip, but I think we get points tonight, and I slightly like the over with the Chargers. And so what that tells me is the Chargers are going to have to answer, and that's going to be through Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. And, maybe we could – what's Gerald Everett's price?
Gerald Everett is about 3 –
No, we can't.
That's what it is.
I can't – and what do we have him – I don't think I can have him projected over Michael Gallup.
7.44.
Yeah, that's right. Because, you can't because of what Parham's doing too. Parham's been their goal line guy. Around the goal line, he's been an absolute stud at getting those looks in the end zone.
Yeah, 100%. And exactly. They don't really go to Everett in the end zone at all. It's been a lot of Stone's smart. You talk about a guy who could be a punt that no one owns and stuff. Stone's smart, got a couple red zone targets, I think, this season and stuff. So I wouldn't mind mixing him in. How many times on a showdown did we get tilted by Herbert throwing to a random tight end to start the slate or something like that?
I don't even know who that is.
He's smart. He's a smart play.
Stone smart. Did he take over Trey McKitty's spot?
He has taken the McKitty spot.
They got four tight ends. And then you got Luke Schoonmaker too. He's been the guy. He's seen 6 targets on the year, and he only has 1 catch.
41% of the snaps last week as well. Blowout kind of helped that just a tad. The game before that, he dropped a touchdown. He had 3 targets in that game. You can do way worse than just 200. Tolbert played a little bit. We had Tolbert actually played a lot of snaps last week. So I'm taking Turpin out of my pool. I hope people overreact to that game he had last week, that 1 catch that he had. He played 2 snaps on offense. But yeah, I'll go a guy like Tolbert over Turpin.
So he's inflated for a few reasons. He had that 1 long run too against the Patriots, 46 yards, and then against the Giants. Again, different game script. I think he got more run there in the fourth quarter when it was 40-0.
Yep.
So again, the box score kind of inflates what he's doing. But then we also have to factor in like Gallup is just the guy that's mispriced. So that's going to be do we just get overweight the field on him? Is he that guy that would go like 70%?
What?
Like I don't.
Well, so here's the thing too: is how many good builds can you have with a 2,800 player? It's not like it's a stud where there's a million combinations and stuff. You'd have to start leaving a lot of salary in there once you hit those builds, right? So let's just take a look here. Point. I want to take a look at captain builds and stuff, see how much of a funnel it is. So you're going to have a captain with double quarterback, tight end 1, RB1, and wide receiver. How many times does this get duped? A ton, right? Still a good team in the sense of it, but how can you get different from Michael Gallup, especially after how bad did these builds become? Let's go all the way down to the bottom of Michael Gallup, just in utility.
So here's my question to you: how many? I got to bring up his chart, but how many deep looks did he get? Because if he goes like if he gets in the box, like if he has a game like he did it against Arizona, it's going to be tough not to have him in that captain spot. Like it's going to be real tough.
I definitely think it's tough. You want to mix him in. I just think he's too cheap not to mix in. And you see his percentage of sims and stuff. There's a decent chance that he gets 14 as the optimal captain. And what Sabersim is saying is that there's a 15% chance of that happening. And there's still a very large chance that he just becomes optimal just in the utility at this tag too. So yeah, I do want to get overweight on Gallup for sure. CD Lamb, Gallup, and Dak stacks just sound so good right now against a terrible secondary like the Chargers.
Yeah, I like that.
Let's see. He doesn't get
so we're getting
Dak a lot.
So we have them in. Okay. I'm like, we got them at 100%.
We got 38% total.
38% total. Okay. And yeah, what do you think he's going to be at when all said and done? Like
captain slot, they're projecting 3%. I think that gets inflated to about 5%, and then I can see that. I think he'll be 35% when it's all said and done. I think 35%.
Yeah. Yep. I like that. And now again, for me, like if I don't, max this, I always adjust. And so for me, if I'm running 50 or 75, I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive there to get equal, because I still play like I'm playing 150. So that's typically what I'm doing. But man, this is interesting. So if we're not playing him, where else are we going? Like who? Because that's going to be the other important part here.
Yeah, this is a good thing. Let's see. I love the tools in Saber too, where we can subtract Michael Gallup from our pool, then see where it's hitting, right? So when we don't have Michael Gallup, we end up getting quite a few Ferguson builds. Cooks goes up a little bit naturally too, wants to diversify.
I like Jake Ferguson.
You get Jalen Tolbert, you get a bunch of these low price guys who then start to mix in quite a bit right here. You get Dowell, Vaughn, Schoonmaker, Tolbert. And then the kickers coming in. We were getting 10% of the kickers, right? Now we're getting 20% and stuff. So this kind of makes sense. Yeah, let's see who our captains are too. I mean, yeah, you get a ton of CD Lamb captain too because you're taking a wide receiver from the Cowboys out of the pool. Well, it must mean that the other wide receivers could be doing good too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like Brandon, how often are they kicking field goals? I was gonna pull it up.
The Cowboys every
no, Chargers. A decent bit.
Dickers
what's
by regular
and Dickers? I still like Gallup over him, but that's where I see myself going if I'm not on Gallup. I mean, looking at the kickers, looking at then the cheap guys, the ultra cheap guys, could bring in a different build type too, just with all of the high price, like that separation there. If a Michael Gallup underwhelms, could bring in like a Keenan Allen or CeeDee Lamb too. Like if you think of scripts where Michael Gallup underwhelms, most likely CeeDee Lamb is going off. Or it's Brandon Cooks maybe gets a deep one, or could be your boy Turpin, who I believe you're under on, right?
Please no. Real quick, we kind of already touched on this too. What are we thinking of min salary left? You saw the team that had 46.9 a little bit earlier in the show, probably about 10 minutes ago. That's not a bad team. In hindsight, you could make the case that it was Quentin Johnson straight up over Joshua Palmer and stuff. I don't want to completely just rule out those teams because the Monday night game last week with the Raiders and Packers was 46-7. And it was the Jacoby Myers captain over Josh Jacobs that just edged out that team by 0.5. So I don't want to get overly aggressive on the salary and stuff, but you're going to see a lot of teams. When we just bring up this team right here, when I go to compact lineup mode, I'll just scroll through my salaries. You're going to see a lot of 49K teams and 50K even. You're going to see all the salary almost being filled. And when we have a team that's at 48.4, still a team that's pretty good. If you went, you have 3 studs right here and Tony Pollard. I mean, this is pretty solid here for a team that leaves 1,600. Where can you upgrade? Dowdle. I mean, you can't really improve on him unless you want to go to Parham or something like that. So I wouldn't be afraid to leave 2K here. And I think 3K is a little more aggressive and stuff, but 48K as a min salary, it's probably going to be pretty standard.
I will say, looking at this, the Cowboys they lose track of tight ends. I know it's inflated because of Kittle's game, but Hunter Henry, 4 receptions on 5 targets, 51 yards. Conklin, 5 receptions on 6 targets, 50 yards. Waller, the baller, who, I mean, that's the Giants. They've been horrendous. I mean, you got Everett. I mean, Everett could be Everett's kind of interesting. Everett's a little he has to go just completely people have to absolutely overlook him with the price because Gallup is cheaper than him. And then everyone likes Parham over him. So I think Everett would be I could see Everett being very, very low owned and potentially one of those guys that could create separation. Now, you also have to look at it from the other perspective. If you're the Cowboys, you're probably looking at this and you're like, we can't make that mistake again. We can't let a tight end, George Kittle's different, but still, Gerald Everett, he can get out there. He can catch some balls. I mean, you got to think that both teams kind of adjust and everything, but I do think that point is interesting with tight ends. They've been doing pretty good against this Dallas team.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm looking forward to it. I know we're both on the Chargers tonight off the bye week too, so hopefully the bets team is on it too. That'll be my final conviction to push the button on the Chargers money.
Yeah, I like the 1.5. I already bet that. Hopefully the bets team is on it. That would be definitely very nice. Is there any final thoughts before we get out of here? Anything else that you want to bring up, take a look at as far as this slate? I think we broke it down pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any bold takes here. I'm the biggest Jake Ferguson guy, and I didn't get to talk about Jake Ferguson too much today just because of that price tag. But, don't forget about the tight ends. They always crush in Showdown, so I think that's a good point. So,
yeah, the Chargers have been okay against opposing tight ends, but they haven't really faced TJ Hawkinson. He put up 14.5. Yeah, I could get on board. I've always been a fan of Jake Ferguson this year too. So I like that. But man, I like the skill position players. I think it's a running back, wide receiver slate. I'm going to be jamming as many of these guys in. I'm going to look at I think you can go. The only thing I'm not doing, I'm not playing defenses. I'm not in the captain for sure. And I am, the quarterbacks. I'll probably be under on dual quarterback builds, but I'm not going to eliminate it. And I am going to take a look at no quarterback builds too. So that's going to be a few ways that I'm getting different. I also want to isolate at the captain spot with the studs, CeeDee Lamb, Eckler, Pollard, those types, Keenan Allen as well, and focus in on those kind of stud captains. I think that's where I'm going to be at. I got the Chargers winning tonight. You do too, Rubio?
Yes, sir. I'll take the money line at plus 105.
You got a favorite captain for the people? And then we'll
CeeDee
get out of
Lamb.
here.
It contradicts my Chargers statement, but CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen, my top two.
It would be funny to have a CeeDee Lamb, and then do you have Dak in there? Or what if you went Herbert and Keenan Allen? And I mean, I haven't messed around with it too much yet. I'll do that after this show, but there could be some interesting builds.
Yeah, no, it really isn't.
You probably want Dak in there. What's Dak's one last thing? What's Dak's price compared to Justin Herbert?
I think it's about a 1,400 difference. Yeah, 10-8 and was it? Oh, well, okay, 800 difference. 10K
difference. Yeah, those are fair. Those are fair price tags for quarterbacks. I don't think we can fade Dak on this slate. Definitely can't
look at
fade
that
him.
one. Oh God, it has Deuce Vaughn. Never mind. God.
I'm definitely not playing Deuce Vaughn. No way. That's all right. So that's a guy. There's definitely going to be a few. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think it's a Deuce Vaughn slate at all. I mean, if he beats me, he beats me. But all right, man. With that said, as we do on Mondays and Thursdays, and again, this will change when NBA. And so we're a week away from NBA. This is going to be a wild week, just getting NBA all prepped and everything. But once NBA gets here, our NBA Up to Lock show is massive. I mean, one of the best shows that we have and things that we do. So I believe the Monday and Thursday Up to Lock that we've been doing, the Showdown Kings, that is going to go away because we're going to be talking NBA. Those guys always talk about the Showdown slates, but it's a member-only show. RPS 15% off your first payment over here. You can use that. Tomorrow we have a meeting. We're going to talk if we're going to run any other type of promo headed into NBA. So again, if you're not a member, you should be. But we should have more information on any promo type things with that. We have the Monday Night Football Print Factory starting at, 5:30 today?
5:30, yeah. And real quick, too, I think we're going to do a Saber show. It might be just me and you. I know you're going to be on it and stuff, but for NBA, too. That'll be NBA specific with Saber for at least one of these slates coming up, right?
What I really want to do is, because I think this tool is going to be so great for NBA, I want to go live. We'll go live right after the first lock, so the 7 p.m. games, and we'll find a good slate to do it, but we'll late swap right there. We'll stay live for an hour or whatever to make sure that we get through a couple different locks and we can talk through late swap opportunity while also watching the games. Maybe there's a chalk player that is underwhelming, early on during the 7 p.m. games that can create some really nice late swap opportunities. So injuries, new unexpected news, etc. We are going to do a show where we're doing that live. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Perfect.
All right, man. For that, it's Rubio. I'm AP. Let's run, Pierre.